In late M36, at the tail end of a brutal and bloody period of Tau history known as the Mont Tau, or Death Age, a group of mysterious beings known as the Ethereals would single-handedly end the many wars being waged between the various Tau tribes. Soon after this, the entire Tau race would become united under a philosophical concept known as the Tau Va, or Greater Good. Over the course of the next 700 years, the Tau would undergo a period of profound and unprecedented technological growth and development. This would eventually lead to the young race to begin their first forays into interstellar expansion, as they sought to expand the boundaries of their rapidly growing empire. This initial expedition into the stars would become known within historical records as the First Sphere of Expansion. For almost 1500 years, the Tau would continue to spread throughout the stars, and over time, the race would lay claim to several worlds before this period of expansion came to its eventual conclusion. The worlds that were colonized by the Tau during this time would become the sept worlds of Taun, Dianoi, bor'kan, Dalith, Falshia, Viola, and Sasea. It was during the course of this first sphere of expansion that the Tau realized that they were not alone within the galaxy, as they encountered and established contact with a number of other Xenos races. The Tau would offer the many races that they encountered during this time a chance to join their burgeoning empire, initially by offering promises of friendship and equality. Some races, such as the Fraxians, would be eagerly welcomed and, over time, fully assimilated into the Tau Empire, while others, such as the Orcs, would refuse and treat the Tau with hostility and aggression, prompting the Tau to respond with a display of militaristic force. In late M37, shortly after the Tau discovered the world that would one day become known as bor'kan, the Tau would make contact with a species known as the Poctroon. While little is known about this particular Xenos race, the Poctroon are notable for being the very first Xenos race to become incorporated into the Tau Empire. However, shortly after establishing contact with the Tau, the Poctroon homeworld would witness a devastating outbreak of disease. This Great Plague would rapidly spread across the entire world before eventually driving the Poctroon into extinction. The Tau, who fortunately happened to be immune to the effects of this plague, would claim the Poctroon's homeworld for themselves, renaming it to bor'kan. This world would grow to become a prime sept world for the Tau Empire, becoming a center for education and research, and even the home of the Empire's most prestigious military academy. Sometime after this, the Nikasar would become the first race to become a part of the Tau Empire and survive. Many within the Empire have since lamented the loss of the Poctroon as an unfortunate occurrence, which could have easily been avoided. But were the Poctroon wiped out purely as a result of an unfortunate accident, or could there have been a darker reason behind their extinction? The simplest explanation regarding the extinction of the Poctroon was that the species was wiped out due to the Tau inadvertently introducing a contagion to the biosphere of bor'kan. This contagion could have been something as simple as a type of bacteria or virus that proved to be extremely deadly to Poctroon physiology. If the Poctroon had no natural defenses against an invasive bacterial or viral contagion, then this could explain as to why the species was so utterly devastated by the spread of this plague. This would also explain as to why the Tau themselves suffered no ill effects of this disease, as they would have already evolved a resistance to it over the course of their evolution, if this disease was truly contracted by the Poctroon as a result of their exposure to the Tau. This does seem to be a fairly reasonable assumption to make, as there have been many examples throughout human history alone of civilizations succumbing to outbreaks of disease following their contact with another, especially in regions where such contagions are rare or even completely unknown. One such example from human history is that of the introduction and rapid spread of smallpox throughout Mexico during the 1500s, following the arrival of the Spanish, which is argued to have played a major role in the eventual collapse of the Aztec Empire, with an estimated 25 to 50% of the indigenous population succumbing to the effects of the disease. Despite this, it should have been possible, if purely from a statistical standpoint, for at least some of the Poctroon to have displayed some form of natural immunity to any contagions introduced to the world by the Tau. Admittedly though, it is always possible that some members of the species were indeed immune to the effects of this pandemic, only for these survivors to be far too few in number to save their race from the inevitable onset of extinction. Another possibility is that the contagion that annihilated the Poctroon was not caused by a foreign viral or bacterial strain, but merely as a result of a disease that was already documented upon the world undergoing a sudden and uncharacteristically widespread outbreak. Such a pandemic could have occurred due to something as mundane as changes being made to the living conditions of the indigenous population, such as increasingly unhygienic conditions that led to a greater exposure to toxins and pollutants. This particular possibility could potentially have been a result of the race's initial contact with the Tau, as the Tau could have theoretically have sought to modify much of the world for the benefit of their empire, at the expense of the Poctroon. However, this would appear to be unlikely, given how the Tau are known to actually improve the infrastructure of the worlds that they colonize for the benefit of all, regardless of their species, as shown with the following passage from the short story Commander Shadow.
Infrastructure. That's what the Tau Empire brings. When I first arrived here, Quills lived in a shameful state, with their machinery in disrepair and their urban centers nothing but crumbling ruins. They believed this to be quite acceptable, for they'd never known otherwise. I began to change all that. Before long, Cytheria had clean water to drink and fresh food to eat. Ample power ran to structurally sound buildings.
Alternatively, perhaps the reason as to why the Poctroon became extinct was due to a native virus or bacteria simply mutating in such a manner that it became extremely virulent and contagious to the Poctroon, resulting in their rapid extinction before a cure could be engineered, synthesized, and distributed. In this case, such a contagion could have theoretically been altered either through direct exposure to the Tau themselves, or by it somehow hybridizing with a normally benign bacterium that was carried by the race. But a darker possibility is that the disease that brought about the extinction of the Poctroon was not one that had been inadvertently introduced into the world's biosphere, nor was it one that had somehow mutated from a native virus, but instead was a form of biological weapon. While the bulk of the Poctroon race may have willingly joined the Tau Empire, there may have been some groups who were reluctant or even refused to do so outright, potentially feeling that the Tau were, in one way or another, oppressing them. If this were the case, then a faction of renegade Poctroon could have engineered some form of biological weapon which was intended to annihilate both the Tau and any Poctroon who were deemed to be traitors, only for it to backfire and drive the entire Poctroon race to extinction. This wouldn't be entirely unprecedented, as a similar series of events unfolded upon the world of Cytheria, shortly after being annexed by the Tau Empire. As detailed within the story Commander Shadow, while the majority of the world's human population welcomed the Tau with open arms, a group of insurgents that remained fiercely loyal to the Imperium, known to the Tau as the Catashun Sept, would launch a number of violent attacks against numerous Tau installations. One such attack involved the use of a poison gas made from the fruits of a native plant known as the Hattalay bush, which was toxic to both human and Tau alike. While the toxins contained within the fruit spore pods were not normally lethal unless directly ingested, the Catashun had managed to somehow amplify the potency of the plant's toxins to fatal levels. As a result of this increased toxicity, the gas weapons of the Catachan, when inhaled, would cause internal hemorrhaging, toxic shock, and eventual asphyxiation, as the plant spore pods take root within the victim's chest and nasal cavities, before gradually forcing their lungs out through their mouths. As such, there is a possibility that a similar such group appeared within the ranks of the Poctroon that not only resented the Tau, but violently refused to become a part of their empire, and as a result sought a way in which to strike back against their supposed oppressors. These renegade Poctroon, who could have been anything from political dissidents to religious zealots, could then have engineered a biological weapon which either by accident or even by design exclusively targeted Poctroon physiology, which in turn ultimately drove the species into extinction. If such a contagion was artificially engineered, then this could explain as to why none of the Poctroon appeared to display any form of natural immunity to this plague, resulting in each and every member of the species succumbing to its effects. But regardless as to how such a disease came into existence, this does little to change the fact that the Poctroon will be forever remembered by the Tau as being the first Xenos species to join their empire, irrespective of how short this particular partnership was. What do you think? Leave a comment below, and thanks for watching.